Hello there, welcome to the Saroy channel. And for those of you who are new to the channel and don't know what Saroy means, it means Sasquatch are real. Oh yes. So welcome to the channel, lots of love to each and every one of you. I do hope you're doing remarkably well. I'm doing fabulous, thank you very much. And let's get started with tonight's story. But before we do, go and get yourself that drink, whether it's an ice-cold, refreshing lemonade or something lovely and hot. Tell me about it if it's something rather unusual. So let's get started with tonight's story. Dear Sarah, and all your lovely listeners, growing up in the heart of the lush, rather opulent Montana countryside was indeed a great privilege for me. I certainly regard the rich, boundless jewels of nature to be absolutely priceless. I look back on those nostalgic youthful days that are indelibly marked on my life with so many pleasing memories and recall. I was fortunate to have a phenomenal childhood, as we grew up as close to the natural world as the wildflowers in the valley, all the bespeckled fawn being raised by its mother, for in those days we slept out of doors in our tents whenever we possibly could. We loved the sound of the wailing northerly wind, or the feel of the morning sunshine dappling our faces at first light, or the pretty snowdrops falling to the ground in winter like confetti from heaven. All those perfect little things that may seem so insignificant on the surface make up the rich tapestry of our lives. In those days we lived in close proximity to Glacier National Park, a vast, stunningly beautiful wilderness preserve that seamlessly blends into Canada. This illustrious, resplendent park is like a sparkling jewel in a crown, is teeming with an abundance of indigenous wildlife, has many exquisite snow-capped mountains, aquamarine lakes, mountainous woodlands, charming little foothills, along with enchanting alpine hiking trails. My parents owned several large, luxurious cabins on our land, where visitors to the park would often stay for a week or so with us by booking themselves a weekend in a luxurious, charming alpine cabin. I'm glad to say that business was always booming for us, attracting some interesting, exciting people from all over the globe to stay with us. We also kept several American quarterback horses on our land, offering horse riding opportunities for visitors who wished to explore the wilderness on horseback. Me and my younger brother Wayne were as thick as thieves, pretty much doing all those quintessential boyish things together. Wayne was much more unforthcoming, reserved, unsocial and polite compared to me, where I was always an in-your-face kind of person with the impertinent propensity of being as thick-skinned or as tactless as a rhino. I was always exceedingly speculative, inquisitorial, curious and investigative about everything. We lived in a large, sprawling wooden ranch-style home, surrounded by pretty flowering meadows, bursting with colourful wild flowers, mingling so vibrantly with the verdant foliage, from fairy slippers, blue salvias, bunchberries, purple cosmos, lilacs, and so much more. Then making its distinctive indelible mark on the horizon, in the furthest distance, sweeping up against the large, expansive blue sky, were the towering, undulating, pyramid-shaped backdrops of the arresting snow-capped mountains that we could view spectacularly all the way from home. Further inland was a large lake with an exquisite aquamarine hue, fringed heavily by Douglas fir trees. One day when I was about 12 years old, I rescued a little raven that had fallen out of its nest. It was so tiny, so fragile, so delicate, so close to death. It seemed unlikely that the poor little mite would pull through. For a while it really was touch and go. Everyone told me to abandon the thing, let it die. But I nursed it back to health, slowly and surely, using droppers for water and tweezers for food. One day the little bird began to make that curious caw sound. I was absolutely thrilled, because that was the breakthrough moment for me, when I knew that my little bird would surely live. Against all the odds, he survived his near-death experience, so I chose to call the little mite Night, as he was blacker than black. Even though we released him into the wild, he kept returning to us, preferring our human company to that of his feathery friends. There is no accounting for good taste, of course. Soon he became an intrinsic, invaluable part of our family. He would spend hours at a time perched on my shoulder like a parrot. Soon an incredible bond had developed between me and Night. My father longed to get rid of that tiresome bird who he believed was a dreadful nuisance, insisting that every time he looked at me I had that goddamn bird on my shoulders. The bird would follow our car absolutely everywhere we went. We would leave our home to go to the shops or to school. He would hover around over the pavement, waiting for us to return, and then fly above our car as we drove back home. He was a phenomenal bird. One day my devious father hatched an insidious dark plan behind my back to rid us of night for good. He popped him in a birdcage, taking him on a 900-mile journey away from home, hoping that we would never see the annoying bird again. Out, he said to Night when he reached his destination, but Night did not want to leave that birdcage, so my father just dragged him out, flung him into the air where he picked up flight. He actually bid Night farewell, never ever expecting to see him again, but within a day the bird had flown back home. My father was aggrieved to see Night perched on my shoulder the following morning at breakfast, nibbling happily at a piece of buttered toast. I remember him saying, "That bloody bird! Will I ever see the back of him?" But I could see something had shifted in my father. He was blown away that Night had found his way back home, and was secretly starstruck by the miraculous bird. One of our regular, more prominent guests occupied one of our most luxurious cabins with fabulous resplendent views over the pristine aquamarine lake. He was a well-recognized author of note that wrote large, fabulous best-selling novels. I'll call him Brian to protect his identity. This kind man with his thick thatch of brown hair, brown twinkling eyes and slightly weathered skin, liked to escape somewhere inspirational and physically breathtaking to encourage his quintessential creative juices to flow. I understood that he worked well into the night, whiling away the long, drawn-out, lonely hours, tapping away into his computer, creating his great written works of art. Me and my brother Wayne would invariably go fishing at the exquisite lake, situated in close proximity to his cabin. When he saw us, he would invariably always invite us around for his version of tea, which was either a beer, lemonade, or a can of cola, served with peanuts or chips. He was very partial to my raven Night, whom he thought was a fabulous bird, with what he described as one heck of a personality. I couldn't have agreed more. He always said he'd give my bird Raven a starring role in one of his novels. "Magnificent birds, ravens are," he said to us as he studied Night, who was now perched on my shoulders, preening himself. "So often misunderstood. That's why they often play such a quintessential part in all those scary movies, almost like the menacing prelude before all that terrifying stuff begins to happen." I know exactly what you mean. Night might be all black, but he's anything but sinister. How's your writing going on, by the way? Could be better. A lot better, actually. But I find myself getting very distracted of late. It's difficult to focus at the moment. "What kind of a story are you writing?" I asked. "Well, rather scary, I would say. A spooky novel." "Is all your work scary?" "It really depends on what I'm writing about. My publishers are on my back, pressurizing me to get this work finished ASAP. I keep getting SMSs and all kinds of reminders telling me to hurry up and to get a move on with my work. It seems I've passed all their deadlines. They're not very happy with me." "I think it would make me feel incredibly unnerved. It's hardly a wonder you can't focus. I mean, your creative juices are probably being blocked or even stifled when you have those publishers of yours breathing down your back, pushing you like that. I don't think I could hack it if I was wearing your shoes. I hate any kind of pressure." "Well, they're only interested in money, aren't they? But they don't understand the significance of the creative flow. It takes time, effort putting words to paper with flair." "I meant to ask you," said my brother, bolting into the conversation like an intrusive bull, veering completely off the topic. "Why have you never married? Is it because your work as a writer keeps you too busy to tie the knot?" Brian laughed. "What makes you think I'm not married?" he asked. "Well, you never wear a wedding ring for a start, which is usually a big giveaway. Then why would you spend months at a time here, away from your wife, if you were married?" "You're not a very good detective, are you, Wayne? If you must know, I can't stand the sight of my wife. She henpecks me within an inch of my life, Nags and nags and nags. The further I'm away from her, quite frankly, the better. You have no idea how annoying it is to live with a pestering woman. It's worse than listening to a dripping tap." At this sudden outburst of impassioned emotion, I could see the edges of Brian's mouth stiffen, as if the very mention of his wife had hit a raw nerve with him. His whole body seemed to almost clam up, rather like a mussel in its shell. I perceived that his wife, whoever she was clearly a source of great perturbation in his life. But unlike most decent kids who would have probably shut up by this time, quitting well before they were ahead, my inquiring, inquisitive mind probed further, deeper, like an irritating tick looking for a juicy bit of skin to suck, whilst my brother was making silent, desperate signals for me to shut up. He was judiciously diplomatic, perceptive enough to discern that Brian's wife was a huge bone of contention for him. "Why don't you get divorced? Is that not what adults do if things don't work out for them?" I asked. "It's not that simple, Oliver. It's complicated. My publisher is my wife's father. You better believe it. If I divorced my wife, bang goes my writing career. Down the drain. I assure you that a heavyweight man like him generates huge influence, power in high places. He's a mover and shaker, a powerhouse, a human dynamo, if you like. He has told me in no uncertain terms that if I ever leave his daughter Isabella, no one will ever publish my books again. He will see to it that that is the case. He's not kidding either. He's a wheeler-dealer of note. He knows how to make things happen. Not the kind of person you want to rub up in the wrong way." "But that's not fair," I piped. "He can't do that to you." "Oh, can't he just? You'll be surprised how unfair this world of ours is, Oliver. It's not what you know, it's who you know out there. I learnt that a very long time ago. The world is plagued by nepotism. It's everywhere. In the workplace, fathers promote their own sons, uncles their nieces. They keep it all in the family. Look at all the film stars in Hollywood. Do you think for a single moment, Oliver, that they got into those high positions based on talent? You better believe they did not. They knew the power brokers, the spin doctors, the puppet masters, who could put them in those positions of privilege. But you mark my words that it comes at a very big cost that personally I would not be willing to pay. From what I've heard, some quite literally have had to sell their souls to the devil just for the price of fame and fortune. And I'm not joking either. Some of them actually have." "That is absolutely awful. It sounds grossly unfair. But as for your browbeating dominant father-in-law, it sounds like he has you over a rock and a hard place to do his bidding at every turn." "Very well put, Oliver. Something like that, you could say. I'm afraid my truculent, rather fractious wife is the biggest noose around my neck these days that I can never shake off, which is why I'm so distracted lately. I think she may have tracked me down here. I get this airy sense I'm being watched all the time, possibly by the private detective she's hired." "You mean your wife doesn't even know you're here?" I asked in surprise. "Not exactly. I tell her I need latitude, legroom, space, if you like, to write my novels. But that woman doesn't know what space is. Even her father tells her to leave me alone to write my novels. He comprehends how domineering, assertive and arrogant his own daughter is. He's eager for me to get my novels published. He's a businessman first, a father second, so he does try and encourage Isabella to give me elbow room. But she refuses to listen to his sound advice. Whenever I leave the house to spend a while in a pretty location for the purposes of writing my novel, she tends to finally track me down by using the reliable services of a thrifty private detective, so she can keep her eyes on me. She's a very possessive, jealous woman. Doesn't trust me an inch." "But you've got to be joking. Does she think you're having an affair or something behind her back?" "More than likely, I imagine. I can assure you that even if I wanted to misbehave myself, I couldn't afford the time. She never appreciates that. People don't get to have lots of time when they're a writer. It's all consuming. Isabella doesn't understand how many long hours it takes to write a book. She thinks I have all the spare time in the world to lounge around in bars talking to pretty women, drinking pina coladas while watching the sun go down. Remind me never to get married. Your wife sounds positively awful. You must feel so trapped. Don't let me put you off marriage, Oliver. Not all women are made up of the same cloth as Isabella. I can assure you of that. I keep praying for a miracle, that one day my wife may shift from being a dragon to a princess, but that is unlikely to happen. It only happens in fairy tales, not in the real world, I'm afraid. You never know. People can change. I noticed my father giving Knight a piece of toast the other day when no one was looking. He went crimson in the face when I accused him of warming to the bird, who he once described as the raven from hell. Now he's certainly changed his tune. I even heard him telling Mother that Knight is an intelligent, clever bird. I never thought I'd live to see the day, but miracles do happen. If only. A few days after our poignant conversation with Brian, he was never far from my thoughts. Me and my brother were fishing at the lake again close to his cabin. I had in mind to catch him a fresh bass. I knew how hard he worked on that novel of his. My heart went out to him, being married to such an incorrigible, delinquent woman who was so claustrophobically stifling in his life. Little did I realise that I was about to meet the feisty, untethered wild woman myself. All of a sudden I could hear loud, banging, clanging noises that sounded like someone was kicking wood very hard, along with the shrill, ear-piercing sounds of a woman's frantic screams. Me and my brother hurriedly abandoned our fishing rods as quickly as we could, running speedily towards the terrible noise. It sounded like someone was in grievous trouble, but we soon realised it was just a wayward, rebellious woman who was making all the crazy commotion. She was stubbornly kicking at the wooden door of Brian's cabin, shouting at the top of her lungs, "I know you're in there, Brian Walker. Come on out now. I know you're there. I've found you." The woman was a willowy, lean, athletic lady with full, long, dark, frizzy hair. She was wearing skin-tight leopard skin leggings, a leopard skin top, with a large black belt and a dazzling gold buckle. "Excuse me, madam. What are you doing kicking at that cabin door so viciously? You could do some serious damage to that wood," I told her. "How old are you, little boy?" the woman demanded, looking at me through her heartless eyes, as if I was a lower form of pond life. "I'm 15. 15? Is that right? Well, I've got sunglasses older than you, boy. So don't you dare talk to me in such a condescending, insolent tone. Do you hear me?" She boisterously continued to kick at the door as hard as she could with all her might. Me and my brother thought better than to argue with such an insubordinate woman. If she broke the door, she'd have to foot the bill. She couldn't say she hadn't been warned about it. We wisely chose to return to our fishing spot, our feathers more than a little ruffled by this obstreperous woman. Our common senses warned us that we would do well to avoid her. Poor Brian, being married to her. I think I would prefer to be married to a piranha. It might just be a little bit less vicious, possibly leaving me with a few more fingers on my hand than Brian's irate wife. "Do you think Brian is in the cabin?" I asked my brother, hiding from her under the bed. I wouldn't be surprised if he was. "I've no idea, but can you blame him if he is hiding from her? She's a bolshy, pervasive woman." We turned around to watch the woman, who was having another tantrum with the door, because it was too strong for her to break down. She was still screaming at the top of her lungs, "Let me in, Brian, let me in. I know you're in there. Don't you dare hide from me. You're always bloody hiding from me. I've had about as much as I can take from you." We must have been about 30 feet away from Brian's cabin when something caught our attention. But what was it? That was when we both witnessed a tall, dark, shadowy, obscure silhouette sweeping past us, moving swiftly with the stealth of a cheetah, with a purposeful intent, almost as if in hot pursuit of its ignorant, unsuspecting prey. "Look! Look, I said to my brother, a Bigfoot, a Bigfoot. I think he's on the hunt. Look, look. We were gobsmacked, bedazzled, beguiled even. Me and my brother just stood watching in awe, as if observing a silent movie featuring Bigfoot. We falsely assumed he had seen something in the brush that he intended to hunt, like a deer or a hog. But to our bafflement, the creature pounced on Brian's unsuspecting wife, Isabella. She let out a squeal, similar to that of a pig. He tossed the slender woman over his shoulder like a small sack of potatoes and began gliding away with her. She was oscillating her arms frantically, fighting the creature off with all her might. But she was no match for this powerful beast. We could hardly believe what was transpiring before our eyes. It seemed so surreal, like something you'd expect to see in the movies, but not in our very tranquil, idyllic, serene part of the world. We could hear the woman screaming, "Put me down! Put me down!" And then her screams trailed off into the distance, fading away, until they became so faint. "Oh my goodness! He's kidnapped Brian's wife!" I cried out in horror. What? What are we going to do?" I ran over to Brian's cabin. I began banging the door down frantically with my fists. "Brian! Brian! Brian, are you there? Let me in! It's important! Let me in now!" Moments later, a taxicab drew up outside the cabin. Brian opened the door, climbing out of his seat, paying the driver for his fare with cash. He was carrying 3 large shopping bags full of groceries. He seemed rather perturbed to see us. "Is everything all right, Oliver? What's up? You boys look very discomposed, if you don't mind my saying so. Has something happened?" Your wife was here a moment ago." "You're bloody kidding me. Oh, no. That is not what I wanted to hear. I told you that woman would find me. She always does. She always will." "Well, she's gone. I'm not sure if she's ever coming back." "Not coming back? Oliver, you're very wrong there. That woman doesn't know how to give up. She doesn't know the meaning of the word. You mark my words, she'll be back now that she's found me." "I'm not sure she ever will be back, Brian. That's the point. I don't know how to say this to you, but your wife was abducted a moment ago." "Abducted? You're good, Oliver. I almost believed you. You had me going there for a moment. I've got to hand it to you. You have a wicked sense of humour on you. No one in their right mind would ever abduct my wife. I'd actually feel sorry for the abductor. That woman would eat them alive for breakfast, give them hell. I'd like to see them try." "He's telling the truth, Brian," piped my brother. A Bigfoot abducted your wife." Brian could see by our grave, earnest expressions that we weren't joking. "You better come in," he said, twisting the key in the lock and opening the door. We watched Brian pour us each a glass of Coca-Cola. He pulled out a beer from the fridge, glugging half the can in a single sip. "Ah, that's better. A nice thirst quencher. Tell me everything that happened, from the very start. Don't miss anything out." "Shouldn't we call the police?" "Don't be ridiculous, Oliver. What use are the police going to be in a Bigfoot abduction? For a start, they're unlikely to believe your claims." "Well, then what about Fish and Game?" "What? And get them to send out the army with their high-powered rifles to hunt down the Bigfoot? They're likely to do a lot more harm than good, let me tell you. I'd rather try and find my wife myself before calling for outside help. My research as a writer has forced me to conclude that some things are much better done yourself. Tell me, what was your impression of this Bigfoot? Did he appear aggressive or benevolent? What did he seem like to you?" "Well, I wasn't scared of him, if that's what you mean. Everything happened too fast for us to react. The encounter was fleeting. It was swift. It felt more like we were outsiders watching a movie unfold, almost as if we were outside of our bodies. The Bigfoot virtually flew past us like an obscure, shadowy ghost. It just threw your wife over his shoulders like a sack of oranges. She looked like a Barbie doll in the air, swimming doggy paddle. She was frantic, put up a rather impressive fight, I have to tell you, kicking and screaming like mad. She rather reminded me of a cat I had once that scratched me within an inch of my life if I tried to pick it up. It was incredible. The creature did not even drop her. She was all over the place, panelling the air with her fists. She was no match for the creature. He was titanic in size. I mean huge. And when I say huge, Brian, I am talking humongous. I didn't get the impression that the Bigfoot was evil, or that your wife was actually in danger of being killed. I think the creature was benign. I got a fleeting view of his eyes, very fleeting, but I thought they looked intelligent, gentle even. But I'm not sure what his intentions are with your wife. That's the problem. Maybe he was attracted to her feistiness. I mean, she was screaming blue murder, kicking at your door, demanding for you to let her in. That voice of hers was so loud it could have woken the living dead. Certainly, if you want my opinion, the creature either fancied her or wanted her to just shut up. So we have a benevolent Bigfoot on our hands. Well, that's a good start, anyway. Now, what did he look like? I thought quickly. Well, he was built like a burly army tank. He had athletic, muscular proportions. I'm guessing he was about 8 foot tall, 600 pounds, with bulky, very well-developed shoulders, rather like that of a bodybuilder. He had overlong arms, much like a mountain gorilla, and short, powerful legs. He was covered in long, flowing hazelnut hair. And, of course, he had that typical pyramid-shaped head that I discerned beheld a very human face, a flat, aquatic nose, and very deep-set dark eyes, if that helps. But that's all I can remember. It's the best I can give you, I'm afraid. I did see him rather quickly. Thank you, Oliver. That's a very good description. I get the general idea, said Brian, grabbing his rifle. Do you boys want to come with me or not? Before long we were searching the woods for Isabella. We were even calling out her name. Isabella! Isabella! But we were met with the ominous sounds of silence. Even the sounds of the bird's song had all but faded. Everything was soundless, so much so that I could hear the rise and fall of my own breathing. Things weren't looking promising as far as Isabella was concerned, but I had to hand it to Brian for his stoical determination and commitment. He didn't give up in the urgent quest to find his wife without recruiting any outside help or reinforcements. Brian was utterly determined to do things his own way, believing any additional resources would hinder his efforts or even scare the Bigfoot off. I wasn't sure he was right. The next day we continued the search, from early morning into the late evening, until finally we hit pay dirt. We found Isabella alive and well, no worse for wear, with berry stains all over her leopard skin shirt that at first looked alarmingly like blood. She looked like she'd been lying in a wine barrel of red grapes. Even her face was covered with purple stains, and her thick black hair was full of grass, as if she'd been lying on a haystack. We could hardly believe our good fortune, as she was alive and well, but she was behaving very strangely. We realized that she was behaving like a frenzied zombie who'd lost her mind. She appeared delirious, as though locked in some kind of a trance. We got the distinct impression that she didn't know who she was or who we were. She sounded as if she was drunk or hallucinating from overindulging on magic mushrooms. "Who are you? Go away," she kept saying to us. "I don't want any more bloody berries. Don't give me any more berries. I've had enough berries." Isabella was caught up in a trance-like state like that for over 3 days, constantly telling us that she didn't want any more berries. Brian had to keep her contained in the cabin to prevent her from wandering off. Eventually Isabella came out of her state, recognizing her husband at once, but didn't know where she was and had no memory of what had transpired. Nor did she remember the Bigfoot. The abduction or how she came to be at the cabin in the first place were all but memories that she never recovered. "I don't know what's happened to my wife," said Brian, "but she's changed. Rarely changed. She's actually nice. It's absurd. She's never been nice a day in her life. I don't know what's happened, but that abduction has changed her, even though she has no memory of it at all. I actually like this new woman. It's like the Bigfoot took her off for rewiring." "Don't get your hopes up, Brian. Maybe your nagging wife will rebound again, come back to you, like the proverbial boomerang. I'm glad to say that I was wrong. It's been over 15 years since that event. Brian's marriage has been completely transformed. It would seem his once nagging, hen-pecking wife has become his very best, most beloved friend. The couple often rents out my parents' cabin together, and Brian continues to write his bestsellers, with Isabella by his side as his greatest cheerleader. Even my feathery friend Knight found Isabella to be a very likeable, agreeable lady, with ears he loves to nibble with his beak. When we visited the couple, Isabella was far removed from that horrible woman that was trying to break down the door to attack Brian with an angry verbal assault. So what happened to Isabella is definitely open to speculation. She even admits she must have had a personality transplant. She does recall being a dreadful wife to Brian for the first few years of their married life, of which she is most apologetic. Brian describes his wife as transforming from a spiky, prickly caterpillar into a beautiful butterfly. So it seems Brian's prayers were finally answered. Even Isabella's father said to him, "What have you done to my daughter? She's positively blossomed into a brand new woman. I always knew you would be good for her, Brian." So it seems that even Isabella's father is on side. But as any writer will always tell you, one thing remains an ever constant in their lives: the overwhelming pressure from the publishers to get the books out on time. So there you are. That's my story. Wow, what a fabulous story. Until next time, goodbye and good night.